Let's talk mediation. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the conversation series on mediation, created with an aim and vision to promote awareness of mediation in the world around us and to talk about mediation and other alternative dispute resolution solutions from the perspective of a common person. We continue with a short legal disclaimer. The views expressed herein are the voluntary personal perspectives of the speakers and may or may not represent the views of a larger professional community they belong to. The conversation series aims to provide a general overview and awareness of the subject matter involved and may not be construed as a professional or legal advice in any manner whatsoever. This session is being recorded for wide circulation. Let me introduce the main speakers and guest panelists for today's session on the mediation psychology. Dr. Teresa Pernell, licensed psychologist, accredited collaborative professional, Florida Supreme Court certified mediator, and a certified addictions professional. Dr. Pernell has over 30 years of experience as a mental health professional with a focus on families. She now spends her professional time as a mediator, neutral process facilitator in collaborative family law cases, co-parenting consultant, and parenting plan consultant. Dr. Burnell has been involved in several projects to provide collaborative services to low and moderate income families. Dr. Burnell is also a collaborative process trainer with roadmaps for resolution. Welcome, Dr. Teresa Burnell. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Yeah.
Madam Uma Ramanathan, a graduate in English literature and law, is practicing advocate and mediator. She has been training advocates and judges all over India since 2008 and is a part of the panel of members collating the training manual directed by the Supreme Court of India. Past organizing secretary and coordinator of the Tamil Nadu Mediation and Conciliation Center, expert coordinator of dispute resolution workshops organized by the Tata Nani Palkiwala Chair, Shastra University, one of the panelists in the workshop conducted by the University of Madras on restorative justice, managing trustee of Foundation for the Comprehensive Dispute Resolution, also the author of the book Resolve to Resolve. Welcome on board, ma'am. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. We have Ms. Rabia Batul. She is a law graduate from International Islamic University, Islamabad, and is currently pursuing LLM in International Economic Laws from University of Punjab, Pakistan. She is a licensed advocate associated with Young Mediators Forum, a registered organization aimed at dispersing awareness at community level about alternative dispute resolution and developing license among students, professionals, mediators, arbitrators, and technical experts. She is an active participant of this only organization in Pakistan which is working at grassroots level for domestic ADR revolution. Welcome on board, Rabia. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. So, today's topic is psychology of mediation. Like, what is the psychology behind mediation, how it helps people? So, from a general person's perspective, Dr. Teresa, I wanted to ask you what it means, for a person who is suffering from dispute, or the parties who are suffering from dispute, what mediation actually means for them.
In a general way, I think of mediation as a place that people can go to have difficult conversations with someone who's going to facilitate that conversation and create a safe structure so that they can have difficult conversations and reach some idea about a path forward. And if people can have those conversations and resolve their conflicts and find a path forward on their own, then of course that's best. But sometimes we need some assistance with that. And so when we can go to someone that can help facilitate the conversation, help people hear each other in a deeper way, help people understand the other person's perspectives and start to put some ideas on the table that might be ideas that hadn't come up before about how to find their way through that conflict, then that really is mediation to me. Now, mediation is defined in lots of different ways, right? And not just around the world, but even here in the in the United States, where we have all these various states, there are nuances in how mediation is defined. But I think the core of it is really as I've just described, at least to me.
Yes. So, what I wanted to ask Dr. Panay, that when we talk about mediation and when we talk about litigation, what goes behind a person's mind who goes to mediation? What do they look forward to, in a mediation, or how they react, and what is in their mind, that what is going to happen with litigation?
So I do think often what is in a person's mind is that the situation seems hopeless, that it's very upsetting to them. It could be a life-changing sort of situation. They can't see a way. They can't see a way forward. They can't see a way out of the conflict. And so often people come in to mediations that I do, which are mostly in the court, sort of in the shadow of the court, the shadow of litigation, mostly expecting that the mediation process is not going to be helpful. And so so sometimes the first task of mediation is helping them have some idea that maybe there are possibilities here, to find a way forward. So
So,
I think, go ahead. Sorry.
yes, please go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, one of the things when we talk about psychology of mediation is all conflicts are by, between, and among people. So even if you have two corporations that are in conflict, it's still people that are coming to that mediation. It's a person, unless you're using a bot, a chat bot or an AI, it's a person who's facilitating that mediation. And so it's individual people that are in this mediation process, ultimately bringing with them all that they are, and then trying to find solutions. And psychology is simply the study of people, how they think, feel, and behave, right? And so we have these individuals in the conflict that all bring their ideas, their values, their perspectives, their needs, their beliefs, their personalities, their emotions, their thoughts, their expectations. We have all of that. And then we have this concept of individuals who are interacting with each other. And so the interactional piece, that falls within psychology as well, about how people communicate, how we perceive communications from other people, language barriers, cultural barriers, expectations around how we're supposed to treat each other. So we have all of that that's going on. And then there's this larger context of the people who aren't even in the mediation, which represents sort of our societal beliefs and expectations, and what someone's going to think about a solution that might be on the table. What will my mother think, and what will my new boyfriend think, or what will society think if we come to this resolution as two corporations or two countries? What will my community perceive and think? So there's all those social pressures as well, and social expectations. So to me, sort of the psychology of mediation is we have this individual, a group of individuals all interacting, and we have these larger societal sort of pieces. And psychology and the study of psychology, whether it's individual psychology or social psychology or intercultural or international psychology, has some information that might help inform us about what a person then brings to mediation, and how we might navigate through all of these layers that are going on in any conflict that we have.
So you mean to say that yes, people do have different perspectives, different thought process when they go to mediation. It's it could be anxiety associated, that what's going to happen. It could be hope associated, that yes, we probably find a solution there, and at least facilitate communication between two parties. So I think that that could be said that it could be helpful for people. So, when we talk about Indian culture, ma'am, Uma ma'am, you have been into mediation since long and since 2008, and you have seen the cultural, we have a culturally diverse country where we have Hindu undivided family here. We have all sorts of disputes, whether it is between within the family, we have a joint family culture. So, what is, according to you, how mediation can help people, and what is what is in the mind of people? Are they very willing to take mediation as a course of dispute resolution? What is your opinion?
Uh, I think Sonal, mostly we've got used to a court deciding things when you have a dispute. See, when we say there is a conflict, generally what do we think? We think there's a difference of opinion. There is somebody taking opposing views. But we fail to understand that in every situation, as Dr. Panel just now said, even if it's corporations, there are individuals who are coming in. There will be law officers who come in to represent the company in a mediation, and they may be just mouthing the words of what the board had told them to say or their superiors had told them to say. But somewhere along the line, when they are looking at the other person, when they are listening to the other person, they may feel something. So mostly I feel conflict is because how the mind feels and how the mind thinks. It's there are two things here. It's the experiences one has, and also whatever is stored in memory, because every thought is also hinged to memory. And the other thing that we generally fail to see is that there are personality traits. And I mean the mediator also here. See, I may have my own values. I may have my own opinions about certain things. And when somebody comes in, see, for example, as you said, in our culture, when a woman comes and says, my husband and my mother in law were ill treating me, and I had such lovely long hair, and they cut it off, and for a mediator to sit there without expressing his or her feelings about that, or trying to, in the process of trying to understanding the perspective, it's very difficult for the mediator also not to react. So I think in this situation, it's also the mediator and the parties who are there. We have to understand their personality traits, their perspectives, and somewhere along the line, their predispositions also. As Dr. Panel said, there are expectations. And in our culture, I think, Sonal, it's more of entitlements. We stand on certain rights. I have a right. This is justice. If I'm going to court and I believe that I will get this particular order, I feel it's my right to get the order. And most often in our courts, what happens is parties come in thinking that if they lodge a claim, automatically it will be given because they think that is justice. So they don't know that they will have to prove whatever they are asking for, or that there will be another step of appeal and all that. So once they are there, what happens is sometimes this decision fatigue sets in. When at that point, they will start thinking about how to go about it. So until then, yeah, as you said, it is the family and it is the other things that kicks in, and because of which they will have advices from others. They will have, what shall I say, opinions shared by others, because of which they are, as Dr. Panel said, there is a social proof there. They think that they have to work. So what shall I say? React in a certain way. So it's very, very important to understand that it is not just the individual, because everyone has an image about themselves. And most of them are thinking that uh, because I have an image or because I think that image is threatened. See, most of the conflicts are because of anxiety and because of defensiveness. And as I said, because of the feelings, how this person automatically feels. And to to regulate that feeling or to regulate that thought, they need to go further. And that is a territory which they don't want to explore at that point. So most often people don't choose mediation, or they don't want to participate in mediation because they think they have had enough of seeing about panchayats and decisions in movies and in TV shows and all that, So they think that's how it's going to be done. So when you tell them that they have to take ownership of the problem and they have to decide, that itself is a challenge to them, which they are hesitant to explore at that point. So it takes some time for them. And also, they are bound by what the elders say. And more than I think anything else, it's the reward risk factor also. You're not sure whether they are making the right decision or that it'll be good for them or others will approve of it. That also happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Somewhere deep down the line, we are a social being, and it makes a lot of like Dr. Panel, you also pointed out what my boyfriend will think what my new family or whoever by society would think about it. That makes a lot of huge impact to us as individuals. So let's talk to Rabia also. Rabia, how is Pakistan, where you are, are advocating ADR? How are people there taking ADR or mediation as a mechanism of dispute resolution?
Uh, so yeah, in Pakistan, basically now, if we talk about the current situation, now there is a uh, growing awareness and education about mediation and alternative dispute resolution in the community, and in past years, ADR and other like arbitration, mediation, etc., were already there. We have an arbitration act 1914 and mediations about the legislations about this stuff too, but it wasn't very much popular among the general people. But now there is raising awareness about the topic, and this is not only because people their own knowledge, but also because of the growing efforts by the professionals and by the students as well, just like my organization, which is the Young Mediators Forum. And there are also other initiatives as well. They are practically there are even initiatives just like one of or ex-Chief Justice of Lahore High Court, respected Mr. Anwarul Haq. He has started an initiative after his retirement that he sits in his office and he does mediation for people, specifically in family matters, uh, without any remuneration or without any fees. So this initiatives just like this are helping a lot about raising awareness in general people about the importance of mediation. So now, if we see, the people are very much very much acceptive of the process, and they now know that what is the importance of not going to the litigation and first trying a peaceful resolution of dispute. And we try to educate the people that the moment there arises a conflict, the solution is already there, and that's where the psychology comes in. And this the only thing is that people could not see the solution because of their emotions and because of how they are feeling about the conflict, because at that stage they are overwhelmed by the emotions, be it the anger or hatred or whatever the case is. But the solution is already there, and if they are tackled by a proper like a proper specialist, or you can train people, uh, they can uh, they can see that yeah, we can resolve the dispute without any extra costs or without any extra hassle of going to the litigation. And so yeah, now also the thing that comes in, and the factor that plays an important role is also about how educated the people are. But also, if we talk about the big companies and commercial level, also they have their own interests, and sometimes their interests and their urge of being at upper hand hinders them to come towards mediation and show a surrendering behavior. This is what is also sometimes considered that coming towards a process other than litigation, an alternative dispute resolution process is just like we are at a weaker position or we are surrendering towards the other party. But yeah, as I said earlier, now because of the growing efforts by the professionals and by the students and those who are in the field or those who are about to pursue the field as professionals, they because of their efforts there is a growing awareness, and now very much likely the people are welcomed uh, by the professionals, and they are very much acceptive that they start the mediation procedures and they do follow the process. So this is how we are managing in our country that just like I said earlier, that our justices and our professionals are doing their effort at expert level by providing their services free of cost and whatever they can do, and by supporting us, the enthusiasts, the young professionals and the young activists and the organizations like YMF who are not only conducting professional mediations as well, but because we have certified mediators in our team, they are young, but they're certified and they are very much professional. And also we are doing efforts on the student level, because we are students too, and we are also educating the students about this. And yeah, so by collaborative effort, this is now becoming popular among the people, and they are uh, their behavior is very much positive now towards mediation.
I mean, that's really impressive because I mean, people coming and providing free service free of cost to make create awareness, and the students collaborating and making it a movement. So that's really what one should learn from you people, and that's really handling things in a proactive way. And you talked about one retired judge also providing free services to the community. So that's really taking head on people, not waiting for a government organization to help, but people taking things in their hands. So that's really impressive. So, Dr. Patel, she also talked about one thing that also occurred, because since you also would be facing that people saying that when they come to mediation, there is a feeling that we are lowering ourselves, or we are entering into a compromising phase. So, have you ever experienced these kind of anxieties among parties, or have you handled anything that is synonymous with these kind of feelings?
The feeling that they're going to have to reach a compromise and they're not sure that they want to do that coming in.
Yes.
Yes, because in part of that has to do with, I think, how at least our society thinks of conflict. It's a win-lose,
Yes.
right? The only way I can get what I want is if the other person gets none of what they want. And so, back to this concept of the psychology of mediation, part of what we're talking about is what is the psychology of conflict? What is the psychology of negotiation? How well do we see creative outlooks and opportunities? And when we're very emotional, when we're in conflict, when it's something that we have very strong beliefs and values about, it tends to close down our sense of creativity and openness. And so part of what I think sometimes have to accept as mediators is that people may come in very closed down about this notion that all mediation wants for me is to give up things that are important to me, and that's what compromise means, and I'm not going to do that. Right? This is important to me. I'm in the right here, or I'm the one that has the true perspective. So why would I give anything up? And so that is one of the challenges. And sometimes I think some of that, I know people sometimes refer to the magic of mediation. Sometimes it is surprising and a little unclear how we manage to get from that at the start of a day, right? I see Uma smiling, you know, how we start our day there, and yet we end up not just with a resolution, but with that very person saying, I feel good about this. This works for me. I can't believe we found a solution that works for me and works for the other person. And we're all a bit surprised, but yet here we are. And it would be hard to dissect that and explain exactly how that happens. I just know that, you know, part of why mediation is so powerful is that most mediators are not going to just accept this notion from the beginning that says there's no room for movement here. There's no ideas that are possible to discuss. There's no, you know, compromises that can be considered, and or that the only view is that compromise has to happen again in this win-lose. And so I think, you know, mediators, we start the day saying, okay, I hear you. Now let's continue to talk. And let's see if we can end up in a really different place by the end of the day.
That's really very impressive. Because that's how the psychology works. You know, first we are not interested in it, and then we realize the magic of it. So that's really really brilliant. So, ma'am, anything that you would like to share about this kind of magic that mediation can give?
Yeah, as Dr. Panel said, I have always been I've nearly jumped out of my skin when sometimes I realize that I thought these people are going to be difficult. They're not going to understand each other at all. And at the end of the day, I find that they have come to some sort of an understanding at least. See, the problem, I think, Sonal, in our courts or in our system is that the lawyers also promise them a lot. And they come to court expecting certain things. And more often, what happens is they want the assurance of the court to say this is the right decision.
Yes.
So I always say they like a red stamp on whatever has been decided. So mostly, even in the cases where we have not been able to settle, I have heard from the lawyers later that the parties settled immediately after they went back to court. Because when the judge asked them what happened, they've already been thinking about it. They were a little unsure about acceptance. And when the judge says, "Now, would you like to think about it again?" They they accept that situation. They come to some sort of an agreement. So I always feel that there is no such thing as a failed mediation, because somewhere along the line we have changed the thought process. But to do that in our culture, see, I think the rapport that the mediator establishes, helping them to understand it's their responsibility to make the decision. That's the biggest hurdle. See, when we say they have to reason out the situation, or when they have to reflect on it, they have to introspect on it, all that is a challenge to the way they are thinking already, because they are anchored in a particular position. They think this is the right thing. And when somebody tries to shake that or deconstruct whatever they have put up, it's very difficult for them to change, because they are not in a comfort at that point of time. But if the mediator is able to have a rapport and respects their perspectives, I have had, how many cases of dowry complaints come in India. And when we are mediating such cases, and I talk to these women and ask them, they will always, not just dowry complaints. There was a university professor had made a sexual harassment complaint. And when I asked her, she said, I have been trying to complain about the situation in my department and nobody was listening to me. Hence, I made the sexual harassment because people will listen to me.
Right.
Which would be perjury in any other jurisdiction. But here, we take perjury very lightly. And so all such claims are made. And so when you listen to them and you listen to that hurt that they are going through, I think that is where psychology comes in, because everyone we think they are difficult. We think they are not moving from their position. It's because of whatever they are feeling at that point, or whatever they feel has been denied to them. And if we are able to touch that chord and help them to establish, to express that, then what happens is, somewhere along the line, once you can't keep crying forever, you can't keep shouting forever. So once that emotion is validated and it gets sort of depleted by expressing, then they are able to rationalize. So I think when they say, when they come with a claim saying what ought to be, it is more of a defense they are putting up. Or sometimes they may not even understand what is happening to them. So uncovering that. And for that, as I said, we have to understand the personality traits. We have to understand what is their perspective, what is the social background they come from. See, for example, if a man comes and says, this woman is not cooking for me, that's what happens in most of the cases. This woman doesn't take care of me. And in my position, if I say, why should she take care of you? Why can't you do certain chores at home? He's not going to open up. I will have to understand from what kind of background he comes that he says that. And then I try to slowly say, look, this is also a perspective you could consider. So that is where understanding it's not just the emotional quotient or their emotional intelligence. I think understanding their perspective without confrontation or without challenging, but at the same time, helping them to shift from that. And I think that is where it becomes more of a challenge in India, because there will be an elder in the family saying, why do you want to listen to this? You're a man, you can do this. Or you're educated lady, you can do this. So there will be other sort of inputs. And so they may not be able to listen. And I find, especially in our family courts, it's so overcrowded. People talk to each other. And one client may, when talking to another person waiting in the court, will educate the other in a way saying, don't give up, do this, do that. And so that gets, slowly it gets snowballed into a big issue. So for them to understand that this may not be good for you, this is what you will need, and this is what you, and especially today, after, because as you said, Hindu undivided family, we had a tradition of males getting certain shares, female getting certain property. And now there is an equal division of property, because of which women who are even 80 years old or 90 years old have opened up partition suits asking for a share in the property. But in our culture, it is the brother and the father who have to do so much for them throughout their life. And sometimes the brothers and the fathers would have incurred so much debt, so they would be repaying loans to have done something for the daughter of the family. And so it wouldn't be fair to give them a share in the property also after all that.
Yes.
When she would not take responsibility for the parents' upkeep, whereas the brother would be asked to share. So in those cases, although the law says this, then we'll have to address that moral righteousness. We'll have to say, no, you are equal. But then what do you want to do for your brother? Or what do you want to do for the family relationship? How would you realign this? How do you want them to come for your functions? Or do you want to face them in any other situation? So what happens is slowly, I have had people who reflect on what happened when they were young, or these sisters, daughters, or children who say, I want my uncle to come for this, or when he was young, he did this for me. So when they remember that, that's why I said experiences and memory. When they remember that, they are able to connect, because mostly, these women, especially when they come asking for property or for maintenance, it's usually at the instigation of somebody else.
Yes.
They don't generally approach. And it's culturally different. In the northeast of India, you will find in Kerala, like in certain pockets, you will find that women are very self-reliant. They don't expect their husbands to do anything for them. And when the legal services authority goes to them to say, has your husband done anything? Can we help you with some litigation in that? They say, I have 2 arms and 2 legs. I can work. I have a good physique. Why do you think I have to go and beg my husband? So that's their attitude. So there you will have to have a different approach. In Punjab also, women are very strong. So it's different. Whereas in some pockets in the interiors, you will find that women are totally dependent on the men. They can't make a decision at all. So there we'll have to have a different approach. So as you said, the socio-cultural milieu is very, very important, and we have to understand from what kind of background they come. See, when Rabia said this awareness, in many areas in India also it has been done. Especially in Kerala, they have a lot of programs repeatedly, and the High Court judges come every month to every district to review the situation and all that. So mediation has taken off in a big way. And I've always reflected on why it hasn't taken off like that in other states. I think it's the participation of the judiciary. When the judiciary participates, there is an orientation. People feel, yeah, I can align with this. I can believe in this. Whereas when the judiciary is not so proactive, or they say, okay, I'm just sending these cases because I want it out of my board. They really don't understand. Then there is a difference. So I think, I'm sure all of us have realized that everyone has to understand, or at least be willing to participate in some kind of a dialogue, be willing to share information. And I think that is where mediation scores above the other processes, because whether they are willing to come, whether they like mediation or not, if the mediator at the point of introduction helps them to understand that I am there for you, I'm going to listen to you, I'm going to respect your views, and we are here to understand each other. Only then they will look at the other part. Otherwise, they won't even turn around and look at the other part. So I think it's in the hands of the mediator to sense what is happening, what is the fear or anxiety of the parties, what is the socio background from which they are coming, and also to understand how they need to be handheld to come to a point where they can listen to the other. You can't just say, listen, you tell your narrative, I'll summarize, I'll reframe, and you listen to this. That won't work at all, because their mind is already closed at that point of time.
Yes.
To open up them up to listening itself, I think the mediator has to understand the psychology of the parties and the psychology in the situation. Yeah.
Yes. That's very true, ma'am. And because when judges speak, they are already at a very respectable position. So if they are saying something, it means a lot to the general public also, that this is something that is a good practice. And similarly, they become a part of the elders or the most respectable strata of society. And yes, definitely, the mediator's role in the in understanding the psychology of the party will make a huge impact. That really helps. And with this, Teresa, Dr. Panel, I wanted to ask you also how psychology plays a big role there. Because when you are a psychologist and you are a mediator, so how your being a psychologist has helped you in the practice somewhere? Because I think that
Um, I have so many things to say. Uma said so many important things, so we can't respond to all of them, but so many important things. How does psychology help me? So, I think one of the reasons one of the reasons I get to do mediation where I am geographically is because somewhere along the way, decades ago, the professionals that were involved in trying to promote mediation believed that there was a space for mediators who did not have a background as lawyers. So that's the first thing that I is a piece that I think is important, because if that had not been a part of our mediation rules to eventually achieve certification, I probably wouldn't have an opportunity because it's somewhat this respect concept we're talking about judicial respect, but also, it is a function of our society that, people often look for ways to determine if a person is professionally, someone that they can respect and consider, putting the hands of their life in. And so just the fact that where I am said, yes, mostly we have mediators who are lawyers by background, but we have accountants and physicians and psychologists, and all kinds of disciplines can come to the certification piece. And so that's one really important piece for me that sort of allows me to be in this space. I think the other thing that comes in is that there are certain situations. I'm going to talk about family because that's mostly what I do, mostly family mediation, but I'm certified in all areas, but I do mostly family mediation, and I've done a little bit of appellate work. But there are some family situations that are best served by a mediator who has a background as a lawyer due to where they are in their process and maybe the types of issues that are to be determined in that particular situation. And it's not that that lawyer can be a lawyer in the room. Again, for those who are the general public that might be listening to this, they can't be a lawyer for you in the room. They're not going to give you legal advice, but their ability to process complex legal constructs that are related to your particular situation is going to exceed my ability, right? I've done this so long now that I can keep up fairly well, but not in the same way. And so there are certain situations where a lawyer is going, and there are certain situations where complex financial matters, having someone who's a CPA mediator, again, they can't be there as your certified public accountant, but they can keep up with certain constructs related to business valuations, a stack of business valuations that they're reading through that are relevant to your family situation. So for me, I think why people come to me, select me as a mediator, and I'm usually selected by lawyers, right? I do primarily, almost exclusively mediation where clients have lawyers, which is important when you're going to sign legal documents. You need lawyers to represent you, I think. So most of the mediations I do, the clients have lawyers. So why would they pick me? Because here in Central Florida, where I work, Orlando, where Disney World is where I work, we have lots of fantastic mediators who are lawyers in most of their work life. So why do they come to me? I think sometimes they come to me as the mediator. Well, I know sometimes they come to me as the mediator because of my background as a psychologist. I can't be the psychologist for the people in the room, but I am able to maybe read quickly 3 evaluations of a little boy who has significant learning disabilities and interpret that information quickly to understand the relevance of what we're talking about in terms of a time sharing schedule or the costs that would be over and above child support to make sure little guy gets his educational needs met at those crucial years when we've got to make sure those services are in place. It's not that a lawyer mediator couldn't, but because of my background, I may be able to process that information faster. Maybe in addition to sort of the typical emotions that one would expect in a divorce, maybe one of the participants in the divorce has a background of a depressive disorder with some, hospitalizations in the past because their depression became so dangerous. I may be more able to manage the conversations because of my background of dealing with those sorts of situations. And so my background as a psychologist, my years of experience and training allow me maybe to understand and process more quickly the circumstances that are occurring for particular participants in that particular situation. So those are a couple of examples. I mean, there are many other ways. I do want to make 2 comments, if you don't mind, because again, it was said so many important things. One of those, it was a comment about the lawyers in mediation. And just again, for whoever might listen to this, qualitatively, mediation opportunities, including outcome of mediation day and something else that Uma referred to, the idea that we created conversations that helped move people forward and give them new perspectives. So even if they don't settle in the day of mediation, that thinking and processing continues and they get to a resolution. All of that happens so much more efficiently and productively when we have lawyers acting as lawyers for their clients who fully, completely understand and embrace the opportunity that mediation brings and have themselves ready and prepared for mediation as well. And so when I have lawyers that come in, they have met with their clients heading into mediation. They have fully explained the opportunities in mediation. They know how to speak in a manner that's different than how they might speak in the middle of a courtroom scenario where they're cross-examining someone, right? So that their language is different, their tone is different, their approach to the other client is different, and they can make that shift. It just qualitatively makes mediation so different, which is part of why I love, Rabia, when I teach at a law school as well, and it's so wonderful when student lawyers and young lawyers are saying, let's embrace this, that this is the way to practice for our people, right? For our community, for our country. So that's a fantastic thing as well. And then the last comment, and I promise I'll stop, Sonal.
No, please continue. Please
Someone
continue.
mentioned this issue of ownership of decisions a couple of times, and it's so important because her first comment, I don't remember exactly what you said, Uma, but it mentioned the energy that takes, right? And so one of the beauties of mediation is, or any dispute resolution outside of a judicial decision, is that you get to make your own decisions. That's one of the positives. One of the downsides is you have to make your own decisions. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of energy. And every person, we've been talking about this concept that every person in the mediation space that's there brings their person. Then we have the interaction, then we have the social pieces. So every person brings their own history with decision making. And you even referred to a part of the country where potentially the females are less prepared to make decisions. So because they don't have that experience historically. But every person brings this concept of decision making. And when you have these big decisions to make, sometimes in a moment, it's like, maybe I'd rather a judge make the decision, because it's hard to get myself to the place that I'm going to take full responsibility and ownership for all of this series of decisions. And we can't lose that piece, because it is an important part of the psychology of negotiation and mediation, this piece of decision making.
Yes, definitely, because ownership of decision making can be an advantage also, and yet a big responsibility also, and so a deterrent also for some people. And this also, having said, I also wanted to. I sometimes feel that is it an emotional barrier also somewhere, because when a judge makes a decision, then you don't have to emotionally be so involved in the process. You can detach yourself because you have a lawyer speaking for yourself. You are not involved emotionally there. But in a mediation, you have to handle your own emotions when you are one on one with a person whom you are at dispute with. You might not want to travel that path again, and things could be emotionally very exhausting for a person who is really suffering, emotionally, the trauma of the dispute first of all, and then having to face that person again and again on the mediation table very close, and being able to negotiate or talk. It might not be very easy for some people, especially on emotional aspect of any the dispute which involves high emotions running. Because if I don't feel like talking to this person, and I have to face and sit and negotiate with that person. Whereas the judge taking a decision, I have said my awardments are there in the written, and my lawyer is handling, and I don't have to face that person per se. So that I think also makes a huge impact.
I have a mediation that is scheduled, and there's a difference of opinion about between the lawyers about whether the mediation is going to be in person or on Zoom. And we, of course, as everybody else has in the last few years, our Zoom or virtual mediations have increased dramatically in the last few years. But in Florida in October, our courts issued update to the statute that said the following: there must be agreement for a virtual mediation. And if there's not agreement, the participants must be in person. I was very surprised by this. So this mediation we're working on setting up, the one lawyer is saying, no, we want virtual, and the other lawyer is insisting that it be in person. And that lawyer used the example, so now it's just an example of what you're saying, use the example of saying they're still living in the same house. They're parenting day to day. They can be in the same space. And the lawyer of the client who wants to do Zoom is saying, but this is essentially, this is different. You want my client to be present with him in a space where she has to negotiate and make decisions. It's not the same for her. And so she's asking to create some distance so that she can think clearly in a day of decision making.
Yes.
So we haven't solved it yet. I don't know if they're going to go forth or not. So they're trying to sort it out. But exactly as you said, Sonal, it's very different. You have all of these emotions, and then you have to make decisions in the same space with this person. And it's this extra layer that we have to consider.
So yes, definitely. So Rabia, let's talk to you. What kind of cases are being handled there? I mean, are emotionally, family cases also being handled in mediation?
Yes, there are a lot of in fact, the main field in which the mediation now is being practiced is a family mediation. Also, in criminal practice, there are mediations being held, like even in murder cases and stuff. But the most frequent use is in family cases. And yeah, obviously, when it comes to the family and the disputes that arise, there is a lot of emotions involved. So yeah, that factor of emotions is all obviously there. And what we try to do is we try to tell the parties that we are not here to impose anything upon you, and it's just we want to create a win-win situation. We are trying to create, because obviously it's not that we have to do mediation at every cost. We are just facilitators, but the mediation has a privilege because we are not imposing anything upon the parties. It's just because they are very much overwhelmed by the emotions, and they couldn't see the solution, and they don't most of the times, or a lot of times, they don't want to see each other, or they don't want to talk to each other. It's just there, the mediator comes in, and we say that yeah, you might not want to talk to that person because you think that he or she is not understanding what you are trying to say, or what you have to say, or what is your perspective. So we are here, and we are here to listen, and we are here to facilitate your communication, because most of the times the disputes arise in the families also because of miscommunication or a lack of communication. So mediation helps in family disputes or in other disputes as well, but specifically we talk about family disputes by providing a platform of effective communication. And if the mediator is also trained in psychology, or has a good knowledge of psychology, or maybe he is an empath, or like emotional intelligent by birth. So they can handle the situation even better, because as the doctor said, that the building a rapport between the parties and the mediator is also very important. And they can sort of understand the situation, and the analytical mind that has been switched off because of those emotions, the mediator can help that let go of that fog of emotion in their mind, and they can let their analytical mind work. after just saying whatever they want to say. When a party has shared whatever he has to say or he or she has to say, their analytical mind switch in, and now they can process the situation even better, and they can analyze. And I think that's the reason most of the time the parties, as the respected trainer, the respected doctor said, that the parties are by themselves surprised that oh yeah, there we have reached a solution, we have sorted it out. So that's the reason, because after communicating their problem and after saying all they will have to say, they are now able to process what's actually happening and what they can do about it, and possibility of solution. And they are like being they are added into the practice of trying to find out a solution. So yeah, that's how the mediation helps them. And even if the mediator is good in psychology and good in handling their emotions and turning on their analytical minds, they can reach a solution more effectively.
Very wonderfully said, because what she meant actually was that when the cloud of emotions actually will precipitate, or that cloud will go away, like the weather clears off when it's rained, the sunshine comes on, and then the analytical mind also comes switches off. So that's a great analogy. That's really very nicely said, Rabia. Ma'am, any of your opinions on that? Because that's a lot of that's a lot of information flowing. We also would want to know about your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think I don't know how old Rabia is, but her interest in mediation has shown
Yes.
that she has a very intuitive way of looking at it and understanding it, and it's really great. And as Dr. Panel was saying, see, parties come in. Of course, they have their concerns, but they are also looking for something. So, most importantly, when the whole process is made inclusive, that's what Dr. Panel was trying to say. The lawyers have to participate, the lawyers have to help the participants to understand what is going on. See, the problem I see is when it is court annexed, it has a different
Yes.
picture. When it is private mediation, it is different. Because in a private mediation, what happens is parties to a certain extent are educated about whatever will happen in mediation, and the lawyers have also briefed them about the plus and minus in their case, and somewhere along the line they have a sense of reality about the case, and they don't want to go through the litigation. They are willing to try this process to see something can be done. So to a certain extent, half the job of the mediator is done there, because they are sort of prepared to a certain extent for a conversation. Whereas in court annexed mediations, what happens is they've gone to court saying they're going to fight for their right. They believe that they have a right to do this and they must get certain things. And so they have gone to court. They've spent enough money and time there. And the lawyers have also promised. So the lawyers who are in court, mostly send them off saying the court is directed mediation, so you can go there. Most often, I have found that they don't participate, or they just allow a junior associate to come there
Yes.
who doesn't have any clue about the case or what will happen in mediation. So it's not a great support at all. So parties, when they come in there without any help, because they've come to court thinking that something is going to be done, now they are thrown into another part of the court premises where they are asked to do something on their own to find a solution. They're wondering, why am I sent here? So the mediator's job to build that rapport and to make them understand that they can do something becomes a tough job at that point. Yes, when the lawyers do understand what mediation is about, when the judges do understand what mediation can do for the parties, and when it is referred at that point of time, and the lawyers also cooperate to give them a positive approach to mediation, then it becomes a better thing. Even then, because of the emotions, the parties may not be willing to participate or will not be willing to even indulge in any sort of conversation. So I think there at that point it is getting them more comfortable with the idea of talking to a third person who's totally unknown to them. Why should they disclose whatever are their innermost concerns and fears? Only if I care. So, if I show as a mediator that I'm committed to this process, I really believe that there is something in the process. And I want to understand the influences and intentions that have caused this, shall I say, dissonance, and they are not able to be comfortable in that. If I say, look, I would like to help you, I make it more inclusive. And I think that's where the mediator's ability to understand the other person's, it's very easy to say, stand in the other person's shoes. And I don't think really anybody does, because in India, especially, they will say, no, I'm not an idiot like him. I'm not a fraud like him. I don't want to, I will make a reasonable proposal. So instead of, saying that, why don't you stand in his shoes and make an offer? Say, look, these are the parameters. These are the options that you have. Now, what would you like to do about it? And at that point, that reward risk has a shift. So what happens is they are able to look at it objectively. They are able to see, look, when you give examples of what, generally saying, okay, in another case, somebody did like this, then they get a sort of reassurance that they could try out that option. So I think, as you said, emotions are high. And emotions are driven not only by the conflict with the self, because they want to know whether they are doing the right thing, it is also by the people around them who say, no, why do you want to give up? You will be a loser if you give up something. So, making it clear that they are not giving up, they are only getting opportunities to make it a better situation, I think helps. That is especially so in child custody matters, because by the time it is referred in mediation, or by the time it comes to court also, there is a lot of parental alienation. And most often one parent is denied visitation rights. The child is not. I remember a child, I just gave her a paper. It was a custody battle between the maternal grandmother and the father. The mother had died because of some, problem in the brain. And this girl was just about 4 or 5. And just to keep her, I hate children coming into the court. I feel that they're already stressed. But when this child had come, I gave her a paper and some crayons and asked her to draw. She drew a house, and then she drew a woman and a man. And she said, I want both my grandmother and my father. I showed it to them. I said, this is what the child wants. What are you fighting for? And then they understood. See, it was just a visual that the child created at that point. And I think somewhere we have to be sensitive to, of course, the mother had her own baggage of, she had not taken care of her daughter when she was young. So she felt that she had to be protective about the granddaughter. It was a interreligious marriage. She was a Christian. The father was a Hindu. She didn't want the child to be brought up as a Hindu. So, what happens in all these situations. So understanding, I mean, I can't tell her what is there. All religions are the same. I'm sure she is not going to understand, because she has her own guilt. She has her own, baggage from the past. That's why I think, as Dr. Panel was saying, getting the history, mapping the conflict, understanding who are the parties involved, what is the kind of influence that is there. It's not just the emotions that are expressed at the table. It is the emotions that are suppressed. It's an iceberg. All of us know that. There are a lot hidden underneath. And so, sort of getting that out, getting them to realize that those are the matters that really matter in this discussion. Those are the issues that they have to look at objectively. And when they looked at this child and looked at the drawing, both of them, of course, it had a different approach, because there was a parish priest who was behind this grandmother and would not leave her to make a decision. But then they understood the need of the child. And I thought that was more than enough. And the child was able to express it more than what a mediator could have done or anybody could have done. And as you said, yes, a judge makes a rational decision, but I'm sure judges also go through, their own biases or their own, trepidations about how they are deciding, because they have to decide on the pleadings and the evidence there. They may not be able to go beyond that. Yes. But when you tell the parties, here it is not just, of course, as long as it is not unlawful, you can explore anything else beyond what is present here, and you can find a solution. I think parties come to some, especially when you find sexual harassment cases. Parents father sexually harassing the son or something like that. Then you go back to the history, you find, and I have found the women there being more understanding of what happened to their husbands and why they are like that, and at the same time trying to protect their children. And I have been astonished by their understanding actually. So I think I, for one, have always asked the judges for a psychologist in such cases. I said I would like to have a psychologist by my side, and the courts have also been very understanding, and I have had that help. And that is why I think understanding, because I will not be able to handle such situations on my own, where there is a say a gay relationship, and they go through a marriage because of social pressure, and then this it becomes a triangle between the gay relationship and this the spousal relationship and the tensions between that, and people will not come out and say about the gay relationship. And somewhere along the line, as a mediator, when I have intuitively realized what was happening, I've had the help of a psychologist who has had conversations with them and helped them to understand what could be done there. So I think, yeah, we need to understand the psychology. All of us cannot become experts. And as Dr. Panel was saying, when it's a financial situation, you need a CPA. When it's a medical negligence, I have actually, when in medical negligence cases, I have asked doctors for their advice because I would not know what to do about the whole thing. So I think in each, if it's a construction dispute, how much of it would I know? If they go talking about piles and cement and iron and all that, I won't be able to understand the whole thing. So I think somewhere along the line, domain knowledge is important, but more than that, how the parties are reacting or responding to the situation, I think is more important. And to do that, we have to make them feel that I am there for you. And they must also feel that they can trust the mediator. And I think the whole process is based on trust and on being able to share their feelings. And I think that is most important.
I think we've really had a very good session with Dr. Purnell explaining everything, and we've had great inputs from Uma ma'am and Rabia also. That was really great analogy, and the way you people are also handling. It's lovely to see that. So any closing comments by Dr. Purnell?
I think I said too much, so I'm going to give way to Rabia or Uma.
I must thank all of you because I always believe, as I was telling Sonal before we started, when I logged in, I feel that when we share ideas, we also learn. And I may have read something, I may have listened to somebody, and I believe that in every one of my trainings, I have to share something or I have to learn by the exchanges that I have in the training. Otherwise, I will not be able to have a fruitful session at all. And I think that is what this has also done to me, and especially from Rabia, who's so young, the
Yes.
insight she had. And of course, Dr. Panel being a specialist in psychology and being there, and of course, your teaching experience also shows the clarity with which you have been approaching the whole thing. And I only wish that in India, that more people would embrace mediation. Of course, it has uh, become a part of our process. People are looking at it, but still, people are hesitant, and to a great extent, only matrimonial disputes get referred to mediation. And I think engaging in mediation, or at least attempting mediation in some way, helps parties to understand. And that is why I believe today that mediation has to be taught at a graduate level. And if children are learn to handle the conflicts in a better way, I think we will be able to restore more harmony here. And I think that's more important. Thank you. Thank you, Sonal. And thank you, Dr. Pan.
Wonderful, ma'am. Wonderful. That was really great. Thank you so much. And Rabia, that was really, I don't know, we really don't know about your age, but you really have a very wonderful and mature perspective on mediation. Thank you so much for joining. And Dr. Panel, definitely thank you so much for joining. So, Rabia, you want to say any closing comments from you?
Thank you so much, Sundar, for inviting me and having me. And thank you, the other panelists. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your kind comments and your appreciation. And yeah, that's my closing remark would be that definitely, as specialists, as professionals, we know the importance of mediation, and now we all are doing efforts as well for letting people know its importance and its positive outcomes that are uh, that it shows. And so yeah, mediation does play a positive role, and to take it to another level, there is a need that uh, either the lawyers or the advocates, those are who are like carrying on the mediations, must know the psychology, at least the basic understanding of the type of personalities. And there is a there is a field in neuroscience or psychology, you can say, which is called as NLP, neuro linguistic programming, which is basically about all about building the rapport and understanding the personalities. And so if such trainings are added, even if the mediators are lawyers and advocates, it would help a great deal. And yeah, if there is another way of hiring or taking the services of expert psychologists, so we all need to like collaborate. And apart from our personal interest, we need to realize the interest of the parties. And if it comes, or if it is achieved by bringing the experts in the process, be it related to psychology or other fields, we must not be reluctant to take that step and reach the best interest of the parties. Thank you so much. It was really a great session.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Paner.
Thank
You
you
want,
for the invitation. It was great. What wonderful women to have a chat with. So thank
yes,
you.
that was really lovely. Thank you so much. I just stopped the recording.
Thank you.